Hey everybody, Dr. Hopewell and Dr. Lynn here. We are recording another how-to video for you with regard to Module 7 and the writing of the methodology section. So we're going to walk through a few of these sections here, point out a few important things, and you would do well to pay attention to those as you write your introduction or your methodology section. Dr. Lynn?
Okay, so the first thing for you to be framing your thinking around is the methodology section of your proposal. This third section is really about planning. And I tell teachers to think about this as a research version of a lesson plan. You're wanting to outline in writing what your plan is so that for yourself, between now and next spring when you actually implement your study, you remember what you planned to do, but you write it in such a way that someone else could read it and have a really clear idea of how they might implement the same study. So that's the really important task as a researcher, is write it in a way that someone could replicate the study if they wanted to. So starting out with the methodology, the main heading is center and bold. You can see ABA 6 format is still applies, running head, pagination is up on the top. One of the first things that you want to do in one paragraph is capture the reader's attention to what is it you're going to do here. And so one of the things that the rubric says is remind the reader of your motivation of your study. And that's really the importance of, why are you doing this? Why is it significant that you focus on reading or you focus on specific math skills, whatever the focus is for your study? What's the motivation? Why is it important? The next highlight on the rubric says to make sure and indicate clearly the purpose of your research study. You can see Dr. Hopewell is highlighting that in gray, and the word purpose is highlighted also in yellow. This purpose statement is the same one that you referred to into your introduction section of your paper. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize, and Dr. Hopewell, you can add in, apply the feedback that we gave you in the introduction. Don't just copy paste in what you wrote initially, because the feedback we provided might have challenged you to be more specific or clear, or include some elements of the purpose that you didn't originally write in your introduction. The next section, under this beginning part of the methodology, you remind the reader of what are the questions that I intend to answer by conducting this study. And so you want to put in, again, your research questions. Once again, I would really emphasize, apply the feedback that we gave you in your introduction section. And so if we suggested, 3 research questions is too many, you can delete this one, focus on this 1 or 2, then apply that. If we recommended specific wording changes or something to strengthen your research question and actually make them researchable, then please apply that information as well. Dr. Hopewell?
The next section that we come to is the description of site and sample. And this again sets the stage for your readers to understand where this study will take place. Now, as part of our maintaining confidentiality, we don't want to name cities and schools. And so you can see in this paper, the student said, it's an elementary school, approximately described it, those sorts of things, where it's located, that sort of information. We want to make it specific enough so that they understand that this isn't like a inner city urban setting, but not so specific that we say this is Spearfish Middle School type of situation. And that's a balance. You'll figure that out as you write. But be specific enough so that the reader knows, but not so specific that they could go and identify the actual school, which might compromise some of your participant data. All right, so you want to describe obviously not only the setting, but the participants, which we've highlighted here, and then any information that would be relevant to your study. You're going to talk about how the students were selected, okay? And we have some information about that in the content area. and you'll want to describe how they were selected for your study. Next.
Okay, so for the going back to the sampling on the assignment guide, there's actually information that talks about two common types of sampling in education settings. One is convenience sampling, which means you're basically sampling including the people who were accessible to you. So those would be your students in your classroom. This student in this paper used purposive sampling. And what that means is she's specifically selecting certain students to participate in her study. So it might be students who are struggling with reading or struggling in a certain concept of math. It might be students who are special education students, which is the case for this student's study. So those are two common types of sampling that are used, but there's other information also in your textbook about some types of sampling. The other thing that I would add is one of the key things you want to use in terms of terminology throughout your methods section is use the terminology potential participants, because you don't know yet for sure exactly who will be participating. So you include potential participants as a phrase, not referring to them as students, but as potential participants.
Okay, so that gives you some information to get started, and we are going to present in our next how-to video some of the procedures, ethical considerations, and data collection information.